Hi everyone, thank you for coming to the speaker session today. I just have a couple announcements before Chris starts speaking. If you all could just please silence your cell phones, that would be greatly appreciated. And we're going to be taking questions at the end through a couple different ways. So you can, we're using Poll Everywhere, so you can text IST Startup the question to 22333, and that will come up on Poll Everywhere. If you want to do it via Twitter, you can do the hashtag IST Startup, or if you're in the classroom, you can just easily raise your hand. Students are also welcome to take pictures during this session, and you can share them onto our Flickr stream and our Instagram using hashtag IST Startup. And just to let you guys know, there might be pictures taken during this, so if you don't feel comfortable, please just move to the back of the room and then come up and talk to me afterwards. And so the speaker today is Chris Fanini. He is the co-founder and chief technical officer of Weebly, a tech startup named one of Time Magazine's 50 best websites of 2007 and featured in Newsweek, The Wall Street Journal, Inc., Entrepreneur magazines, as well as on NBC and the BBC. Chris has a passion for technology, infrastructure, and the web. He is an avid snowboarder, angel and real estate investor, and hours away from obtaining his private pilot's license. He is also a 2012 graduate of Penn State University College of IST. So here is Chris Fanini.
Cool. Thanks, guys. So is this coming up here? I don't see it.
Let's see. Is it display port?
Yeah, I don't want to break it.
Blank screen.
Awesome. So yeah, great to be back. Always love coming back to these events. It's been, I guess, so last year we were here, myself, Dave, and Dan, also co-founders of Weebly, and it's always a great time. Great to hang out with you guys and speak with students and kind of share our story, because we were here not too long ago. It seems like it's been longer than it has, but so back in 2006, 2007. So what I'm going to do today is really just go through. I've got a couple slides prepared, kind of tell you a little bit about kind of Weebly and what my role is there as CTO. Chief Technology Officer, and just kind of share a bit about our story and what we're up to at Weebly. But more importantly, I think it'd be great if you guys could start thinking of questions and stuff you want to ask me, because I think that's where there's a lot of value here. Is have you guys be able to ask questions, and I can share with you. So that being said, let's get started. So no, it's not working. Of course, technology, right? There we go. So I met David Dan here at Penn State, so it's a terrible picture of David. Don't tell him that I use this if you see him. But we all met at Penn State, like I said, back in 2004, and became pretty close. And Weebly was started actually here in IST 402, right here at Penn State. So back in 2006, 2007, we actually applied to a seed stage firm called Combinator, and what they do is if you guys haven't heard of it, is essentially they invest small amounts of capital into ideas, startups, someone who has an idea, a group of people, and they essentially help kind of get you off the ground. So they give you enough money to sort of live and cover your living expenses while you're able to really focus on your idea and work on your company and try to really make progress as quickly as possible. So we did that. We applied for Y Combinator. We got accepted. In 2007, we drove to Boston. We had an interview. Ended up moving out to San Francisco in 2007. So we all technically dropped out, and then actually finished our degrees remotely. Took me the longest. I waited till 2012, but I did eventually graduate. So that's a cool thing. So that's 2007. Fast forward to today. We've got 3 offices. We've got one in San Francisco. It's our headquarters. We have an office in Scottsdale and an office in New York City as well. So we're growing very quickly. We've got over 200 employees across these offices here, and it's just been kind of a pretty wild journey. So at this point, we power roughly 2% of all active websites on the internet. So it's quite a few sites. We rank Quantcast number 10. And we've got over 30 million users. So with that, we've got 30,000 people a day, more or less, that sign up for a new account. And from an infrastructure side and a technology side, we serve about 11,000 HTTP requests per second, across through our infrastructure, which is pretty cool. So it is a lot of traffic, and it's something we're proud of. So, scaling the team and the company and sort of everything in between to support, our growth, the traffic, the infrastructure, all that is a challenge, right? So none of us came into this knowing how to do it, right? We didn't have prior experience building a company. We didn't have prior experience running, a top 10 website on the internet. We didn't have experience with any of this stuff. So we more or less, learned it by talking with our peers, talking with other folks in the industry, networking, reading a hell of a lot, and just by trial and error, right? So breaking things, which I think is a lot of the fun in a startup, right? So as CTO, my focus is around strategy, right? So overall company strategy on the technology side. So how are we going to continue to scale? How are we going to continue to serve our customers, as we add new features, functionality? We launched e-commerce not too long ago, and that's been, a massive piece of our business and growing very quickly. So now not only are we supporting personal websites, blogs, small businesses, we're supporting companies that are selling products through Weebly, millions and millions of dollars of products through Weebly. And they're doing that, and they're supporting themselves and their families. And so there's a lot of, these people rely on us, right, to sort of have very stable service and quality service. So a lot of what I do is make sure that, both the IT side of things and the operations, that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. There's really two parts to it. There's the IT side, which is the office support. So these are the guys that support all of our employees, support our engineers, make sure that they have what they need so that they can work and write software and build features and support our customers. And then on the other side, we have the operations team. So those are the guys that are on call 24/7. These are guys that are building out our infrastructure, our data centers. These are the guys that are supporting massive influx of traffic, figuring out how to scale, what comes next. So really getting all these teams together and making sure that they're able to work well together and have what they need and the resources that they need to succeed. That's my goal. So it's really a lot. It's gone from me being the guy who was actually building a lot of the infrastructure early on and physically racking servers and dealing with this stuff, to now facilitating and making sure that everyone has what they need. Like I said, so it's really it's a cool place to be, and it's very powerful to do that and to be able to kind of help people within the company, to help other people. So it's very meta, but it's great. So I'll just quickly go through some of the teams here. These are the ops guys, like I mentioned. So these are guys who are running all the infrastructure, as well as the IT and the office team, and these are the folks that are supporting our employees. So one thing you'll notice is, given the size of the company and some of the traffic statistics that I gave you earlier, these are relatively small teams. And the reason for that is these guys are the best in the industry. So we hire the best of the best, right? We really strive to find people that have just crazy drive, passion for what they do. And these are the guys that can just be super, super efficient with their time, and both, helping the company and helping our customers. So really small team that we're able to get a lot done, and we're obviously growing, but it's I think a pretty good testament to kind of where the company's at and how we've able to grow at this point. So back to kind of primary team responsibilities, just to kind of give you guys just a quick sort of peek into day-to-day, kind of what it looks like. So a lot of this is from the operations perspective. So scaling to keep up with the demands of our ever-growing user base, obviously, as mentioned. Monitoring core systems and KPIs. So KPIs are key performance indicators. So that's we choose some statistics or some data from our various systems that we have, and we monitor those. So it could be something, and this changes right over time, but it could be page load time for SSL, so we can see how we're trending on our secure SSL termination on our load balancers, right? See if that's going up or down, or if there's a problem there. It may be just revenue numbers, right? That pertain to certain things. It may be average page load, when someone logs in, that sort of thing. So we track all that and we monitor it, pretty closely, as well as just all the standard stuff: server health, bandwidth, memory usage, all that good stuff. Handling security patches and upgrades. So, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, There's been a lot of stuff in the news recently over the last couple of years, everything from, Heartbleed to some of these shell shock vulnerabilities. This is real vulnerabilities that affect, large companies, including us, so we have to be on top of that stuff, right? If we see something that may affect us, in this case, the two examples I mentioned did not affect us, but if they do, we have to figure it out. We have to triage that. So we have guys that, focus on security and can handle that kind of stuff very quickly and determine, what the impact is for us and how we have to patch our servers or, update software, that sort of thing. And then, as I mentioned, supporting the development team. So this is both something that IT and operations, spend a lot of time doing, and making sure that our developers, our engineers are able to, write software, write really good software, and push software as fast as they can without breaking and taking down the whole site, right? So there's a lot that goes on with that. If you're serving 11,000 requests a second, and you make a change to something, and that change is bad, you're going to cause some issues. You're going to break some shit, right? So staying on top of that, and then ensuring 24/7 on call. So this is important. These all the folks on the ops team are on call, so they are part of the rotation. They on a daily basis. Well, the rotations are bi-weekly, but if something happens at 4 in the morning and there's an issue, we have a primary on call, we have a secondary on call. If that for whatever reason doesn't work, so it's a system that rolls over, they get paged, they get a phone call. If they don't acknowledge it in a certain amount of time, it goes to the next person, ultimately ends up at me. If you're waking me up at 4 in the morning, it better be a big deal. So we've got that whole system in place, which is really, really great. And then the testing integrity of backup systems. So this is something that most people focus on backups. They perform backups. They put data on tape. They put it off-site. They put it in the cloud, wherever. But the thing that often is sort of ignored is testing the actual restore functionality of your backup. So we've got a whole system in place during on-call rotation. Whoever's on call, they have to go through and they have to restore a backup all the way through the system, right? So it goes from our secondary data center, they pull it off the cloud, they put it in there, they load it up in, let's say, MySQL, they turn that instance on, they make sure the data's there, they make sure it's accessible, and that, it's not corrupted and that sort of thing. So we take that pretty seriously. We're actually building a system now, it's really cool. It's going to be more or less like a one-click, fully automated way to restore every single one of our shards. So we have a sharded database system across 13 shards. So we'll be able to actually pull that data down in real time. It's, a ton of data, and restore that next to all of our existing production database servers. So pretty cool stuff. And that's something that the ops team is working on. So the common challenges that we see kind of day to day, this is just a subset of kind of the more interesting ones, but volumetric and layer 7 DDoS attacks. So what that is people try to send traffic to our network, to Weebly, to websites that we host. They don't care that we're a major web hosting company, more or less, and that we have millions of websites that we host that are collateral damage. They just want to take down that one specific site. So they'll send traffic to a specific site. They'll resolve that site address via DNS. They'll get an IP address. They'll start sending traffic to that IP address. We have to deal with the traffic. So that's a challenge. So we see, I think our largest attack to date has probably been, I want to say 40 or 50 gigabits per second. So it's a good chunk of traffic. And what it does, it sort of breaks things all the way down the stack, right? So it comes in, if it doesn't cause a bottleneck on your upstream provider, it makes it to your network, it'll start wreaking havoc all the way through the stack. So we've got all sorts of stuff that we've developed, both proprietary in-house, and we use third parties to filter this traffic and stop it from reaching our network and eventually, causing an outage. So we spend a lot of time on that on a daily basis. We spend a lot of time on that. We're constantly under attack. I can show you graphs of smaller attacks, 1, 2, 3 gigabit per second attacks. People just try to send UDP traffic, or in the case of layer 7 attack, if you guys are familiar, layer 7 is really just your HTTP. They're actually making real requests to your site. They look like real requests. They're harder to filter out because you have to determine what's fake and what's real, right? So if they can mimic a request that looks like a user, those are really difficult because you don't want to end up filtering out real user requests. You have to spend a lot of time looking at sort of the heuristics of those. Other challenges, deploy problems, again, kind of like I mentioned earlier. We've got so many machines and we have so many sort of requests per second and traffic that's flowing through the system that when we do deploys, and we've had to spend a lot of time kind of really dialing in our deployment infrastructure so that we can, again, engineers can push code very quickly without risk of taking down a site. So every once in a while we'll have issues around that we have to deal with. security patches I've touched on. Hardware failures, so happens all the time. Most of the time goes unnoticed. Hard drives can fail, machines can fail, routers can fail, switches can fail, and things keep running. There's a lot of redundancy built in there, but it took a lot of sort of work and effort to get there, to get that redundancy. And now we're at a point where we can just sort of deal with the failures as they happen when we get a chance to. And human failures. So I say human failures. This is stuff, you're in a data center. I'm trying to think of an example here, and one of our links went down. We have multiple links. We have 10 gigabit fiber optic links to different carriers. And when a link goes down, it doesn't take down the service. Traffic gets rerouted. But the guys on the ops team will still investigate and understand why it went down, because we want to know why, right? Even if it's not on our side, if it's an upstream thing. So there was a case recently where a link went down, and we find out that somebody who worked at the data center, at the meeting room, which is where a lot of the fiber comes in and the interconnections to different carriers, they just happened to pull our pair of fiber out by accident, and they started cleaning it because they thought they were cleaning another customer. So, and this is like, you look at these panels and it's like Craigslist, Facebook, Weeblys in there, and these are like major services, and these guys are just kind of messing around in there. So that stuff happens, right? People just don't pay attention. It's crazy. So you deal with that. And then third-party failures. These are, our domain registrar where we host domain names. They go down, every once in a while, and we have to, deal with that. If we ever have an issue with, let's say, authorized.net or some of these payment providers that we use, we have to deal with sort of how to triage that, figure out where the problem is. Is it them? Is it an upstream? Is it a router in between us and them, and we have to reroute traffic? So just sort of having the ability to go through and deal with all those problems is something that's important that we focus on. And then I just wanted to this is just a kind of a fun thing, but this is a graph of one of our 10 gig cogent connections in San Francisco, and so something is off here, and I'm just curious if you guys can pick it out. So I don't know if anyone can kind of see what's off with this graph. Okay, so it's actually interesting. So these the green spikes here are ingress. So this is traffic to our network, right, from the outside. And the blue is egress traffic, and that's us serving data. So you can see the blue, the volume area is much higher. That's us serving, HTTP traffic to our customers. So the green spikes are actually, these are denial of service attacks. So you can see here, the largest one on this graph is 2.8 gigabits per second. So the cool thing to note here is because of a lot of the, like the infrastructure I've talked about, the DDoS mitigation stuff that we have in place, we're able to, generally when you see this sort of spike here, you'll see a corresponding decrease in egress traffic, and that means that, that attacker is essentially, they're succeeding, right? They're limiting your egress. So they're sending a bunch of traffic in, which is doing something on your network, whether it's calling a router, a switch, or tying up, CPU resources on an app server. They're causing that app server to stop responding to legitimate requests. So what you'll see is a decrease in this traffic. You'll see a huge spike up here in the blue, which is actually a spike down. We're not serving that traffic. So this is just a cool example of some of the stuff we've done. We're able to sort of shield that. We see the traffic, we get it all the way into our network, and then we're able to sort of block any negative effects. So we're still serving traffic just as if nothing ever happened. So it's kind of a cool thing. Yeah, so that's sort of kind of a high level, overview, if you will, of kind of some of the stuff that we're up to. But yeah, like I said, I'd love to answer questions and just talk about some stuff. What's up?
So yeah, you talked about Y Combinator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about Y Combinator as venture capital, and I also noticed that you guys, I think you received Series C funding from Sequoia Capital. What were your experiences like working with such venture capital firms, and where do you think they could improve in the future?
Sure. So the experience working with, so yeah, and so to clarify, so Y Combinator isn't really a VC firm in the traditional sense. They're a seed stage funding firm, right? VC firms traditionally put in, $1 million plus, right? Whereas Y Combinator will, they'll put in smaller amounts of money to get you started. But so the experience working with Y Combinator, I'll just start with that. It was just an incredible experience. You're working with all your peers. There's all these people that are, more or less just all focused on the same end goal of building, some sort of great company and working as hard as they can at that. And a lot of that is like proving out your idea, and is it going to work? I have this idea. Can we make it work? Is it viable? Can it be a real business? So you spend all that time figuring that out, and then sort of once you get to that inflection point where you've got a real business, generating money, unit economics work, that's when the VCs get involved, because they want to see a little bit of traction, right? They want to write a big check, and they want to see that you've got traction, if you've got a real product, a real business, something that's going to generate revenue, be a real business. So working with those guys in Sequoia, arguably, I'm biased, but one of the best VCs in the world, and that's there's data to back that up. Those guys are just incredible. So Ruoff is on our board. He was CFO at PayPal, right? I mean, the sort of access to talent that we have through Sequoia, they've helped us recruiting some of our key recruits in the company. And they're there. They're not. Some people think of a VC as they get in your way and they try to change the business and they want to change. They want to like pull the CEO out, put a new CEO in, and start firing people. But it's not like that at all. They're there to help you. They realize that you know the business better than they do. They're not living it day in, day out. So the way we look at it, especially with Sequoia, is these guys are available inflection points. Right? If we need help with something specific, they'll help us. I think a great example too that kind of pertains to the ops side of things is we were blocked by AT&T a couple of years ago because we had a malicious site that we were hosting unbeknownst to us. We host millions of sites and people publish sites every second, and we got blocked in AT&T. I had my whole entire team try to reach out. We tried to get someone at AT&T. Their network operations department that handled these blocks was gone for the day. It was like 5 p.m. on like a Wednesday or something. It was crazy. So we came up with the dead end. Worked hours on this thing. I reached out to all the contacts I had. We just couldn't get a hold of anyone to help figure this out, right? Just figure out why we were blocked and unblock it. Meanwhile, it's affecting customers, or customer support's blowing up. We're just trying to figure it out. We made some hacks behind the scene to kind of reroute some traffic and mitigate most of it. We still wanted to get this thing unblocked, so we reached out to Sequoia. We're like, guys, can you help us out? So Doug Leone gets involved. He's one of the partners of Sequoia, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll take care of this. I'm friends with the CTO at AT&T. We're like, sounds good. So next thing you know, you fast forward, there's like a phone call. So basically, we get a phone call from this guy. He's like, hey, I don't know who you know, but I've got my boss on the other line. He's on hold. He's got his boss on the other line, and he has his boss on the other line, and his boss on the other line. This is like AT&T, and this is spanning like the entire U.S., right? He's like, but I'm just told that there's some sort of block and we need to get resolved. I'm like, okay, yeah, here's the data. It's 199.34.228.128/. It's a class, it's a class C subnet, and he's like, all right, hold on. Puts us on hold. 2 minutes. He's like, okay, the block is unblocked. Like, is there anything else you need? And that was it. Like, right? Whole thing got resolved in a matter of like minutes. We were like, holy shit. So that's probably a good example of just sort of, these guys are here to help us, and they want to help us succeed. And they're great partners. We consider them partners in the business. They're just there to help us, and anything we really need, and obviously with direction and kind of as we've been scaling the company out and hiring, much faster than we have traditionally, they've got a lot of insight in that. They've been with other companies. They've sat on the board with other companies. They are on the board of other companies. They've seen what we've seen or what we're seeing before, so they can help. So, sure. Makes sense.
So I sort of got two questions, one about the makeup of your dev team, and then another about your own personal makeup of your time. You said about 200 employees, but I only saw half a dozen ops guys. And what does your dev team look like? And then the second question is, one of the things that we delightfully and affectionately make fun of CTOs for is that there's chief travel officers instead of chief technology officers. Do you find that you still get the opportunity to write code?
So I don't write code as much. Early on, I helped write a lot of the code with David. At this point, I'm more of a liability if I try to write code. I've tried it in the past. I'll push something, and the problem is, we've got, there's dozens of people on the engineering side, right? They're writing code all day, and these systems are changing, right? And these guys are, they're focused on various pieces of the architecture. I'm just not as close to that anymore. So if I go and think, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna I want to correct this small little bug on the website. I'm gonna commit a patch and push it live. There's something I probably don't know about, right? There's just something or some piece of that that's related to it that I'm just not as familiar because I'm not dealing with it day to day. So I've tried, I've done it, and I've broken the site. So I generally try to shy away from that. And I don't travel that much either, so I spend a lot of time. On the weekends, I'll travel on weekends, but most of the time I'm in San Francisco or, I spend some time in Scottsdale, our office there as well.
And then the first question about the dev team, though.
Yeah, so the size of the dev team? Yeah, so we have a little bit less than 100 people on the dev team. These are guys writing software and pushing code to the live site. So we're going to be experimenting and hiring, I think, some engineers in New York too soon. So mostly now our engineers are all based in San Francisco, but we're going to expand that as well. So, yeah.
So when you first started, and it was you, David, and Dan, did you specifically have like roles set between you three? Were you, did you work specifically on the technology, and then how did that translate to you becoming, the chief technology officer later on now years as this has grown to be so large?
Sure. Great question. Yeah. We lucked out. We had a team of 3, and we sort of naturally fell into the positions that were, made the most sense for us. So early on, the makeup was, David had started Weebly in IST 4.2, and built a lot of the original code, right? So all the original sort of underpinnings of Weebly, a lot of it's still in place today, for better or for worse. Early on, it was David, and then I joined and started writing code as well, and committing code to the code base. And then Dan really focused on product and marketing. Dan kind of did like everything that supported so that we could just write code, right? So he did marketing, he did product design, like wireframe, how to figure out what the features are going to look like, customer support, just kind of anything that needed to get done early on. And so fast forward, a couple years later, and the role sort of, evolved, and David, natural sort of CEO of the company, is still very close to the technology as well. I was doing a lot of infrastructure-related, development, and as we were scaling, building out our data centers. So it made sense for me to continue to do that and grow that area of the business. And then Dan was really good at product, so it made sense for Dan to grow the product side of the business. So now Dan focuses on, product and design. So it kind of worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I also have 2 questions. The first one is, in the early days of Weebly, when you guys were moving out to San Francisco, what kept the 3 of you going in that apartment on the days when no one was signing up for the site, nothing was getting done, you were breaking everything? What kept you going?
Great question. I mean, it was us, our company, the 3 of us, really. And I think it's kind of cool, the dynamic of 3 people. You always have sort of a tiebreaker too. So if there's 2 people that are trying to figure something out, or they have really strong opinions, you always have someone that come in and be like, listen, all right, here's how we're going to do it, right? But in the early days, I remember it was such a roller coaster, right? I mean, it was almost like week to week. One week it would be like, oh, things are great, like it's awesome. We just got this written up in TechCrunch or whatever, VentureBeat or news article, and traffic is looking really great, and we have we're getting 100 signups a day. It's like awesome, cool, and then it just kind of like peters off. And David, you should watch David's presentation later, because he's got a great presentation on kind of taking you through the evolution of Weebly from when we started, and he uses sort of a graph of our new user signups as sort of a way to tell the story, and it's really quite interesting. So yeah, it's hard, right? I mean, we had each other, so we really relied on each other. Being part of Y Combinator, we were able to sort of share our experience with others who were in the same place. So I think just being surrounded by people that understand kind of what you're going through is really helpful in the early days to kind of keep you sane and keep your spirits up. So.
Thank you. And then the second question was, when you first started Weebly while still a student, did you or the 3 of you combined truly believe that you had the skills and competence to create a strong product in Weebly, or was it more, let's just try and see what happens?
We believed it, and you kind of have to. That's part of it, right? You really have to believe in yourself, and we did, and we were convinced. We were pretty convinced that we were going to make this thing happen in one way or another, right? So we tried on the way too. We had Weebly, and then we built Snap Layout, which was back in the days of MySpace, and if you guys are even familiar with that. We built a MySpace profile editor. It was like the worst decision ever. MySpace was like this, and Facebook, and we were like, oh shit, so we burnt half a year on that. We tried Snap Ads. We tried building display optimization, display advertising optimization company that used genetic algorithms to determine the best display advertising. So we tried all this stuff. We were just determined to make this work and to build a business. So I'd say from the get-go, there was clearly, there was obviously some uncertainty as to whether or not, Weebly itself would work, but I think we were convinced that we had something and that there was a need for it, and there was, it was going to be a real thing. Yeah. What else?
I think there were a couple questions on Poll Everywhere.
Sure.
Someone said, "Hey Chris, has Weebly considered participating in any bug bounty programs such as a hackaroon or bug crowd?"
Absolutely, great question. So bug bounty programs, for any of you folks who don't know what that is, it's a way to foster responsible disclosure of bugs in your website. So essentially what it is a platform that facilitates people being able to sort of write in responsibly and say, hey, I found a bug in your website, or I found an XSS vulnerability, or I found something that could be potentially bad. And they write in, they submit it privately, and from there we evaluate it internally and we decide, hey, is this a real thing? If it is, we can actually assign a bounty to it. So we'll put, could be $50, right, if it's something very basic, could be $1,000 if it's like a major vulnerability that we're like really happy that someone found, right? And that's the thing, like when you're developing code for a web service, like Weebly, you're pushing new features all the time. And it's always a balance between pushing new features quickly and doing QA and making sure that they're stable, but also focusing on security. So there's all these things, right, that you need to sort of keep in check. And it's hard when you're moving very, very fast. People make mistakes. People are writing the software, so people can make mistakes, right? It's not unheard of. So back to the original question, we are part of CrowdCurity, which is a bug bounty program. So we're in private beta with them now. And what that means is we're just sort of understanding what the workflow is like. And we've got a couple independent security researchers that are on there, and they've found some bugs, and most of the stuff we've actually already seen before are fixing. But yeah, we're excited about that, and I think that's probably the future for most companies. To be honest, most SaaS companies is to be a part of these programs. They're really important. Yeah.
All right, another question from Poll Everywhere was, what is something you wish you knew or would have done differently when you were in college?
Something different, let's see. It's a tough one. My girlfriend will say I should have dated more, so that's probably one of them. Anything else? No, but really, I mean, so I think it's important to find people that have your common interest, right? I mean, spend time. It's all about who you spend time with, right, and who you surround yourself with, and those are the people that are going to help you develop as a person. And if you're trying to build a startup and build a company, find other like individuals that are trying to do the same thing. They want to, build a startup. They want to. They have a passion for building something for people and designing a software. Surround yourself with those people, because that's where. Back to the other question, what kind of keeps you going, right? I mean, when you have these ups and downs, having someone else to kind of relate to is really important. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. What's your relationship to the free software community, the open source community that presumably produces the software that your servers run on?
Yeah, so a lot of the software we use, correct, is open source. We run the core stack is MySQL, Apache. Nginx, we run CentOS, which is a variant of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And so we're, just starting now as we get larger and we have sort of more bandwidth on the development side, we're starting to give back. So we have some open source projects in the works and things that we want to start giving back to the community. We give back, we submit code for some of the tools that we use on the ops side, every day. We find bugs, we help fix things, we help, push out new features, that sort of thing. So it's important to us to kind of be a part of that. You know, we're looking at some new stuff too, some more new storage infrastructure, potentially leveraging some open source technology there, and being a bigger part of that.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I think I saw one more on poll everywhere. This question is, what should have in place with your idea when applying to programs like Y Combinator? Combinator.
Y Combinator? It's okay. So I think the most important thing is actually less about the idea and more about the team, in my opinion. So having a really strong team, so whether that's one co-founder or two co-founders, you know, a team of three, probably wouldn't go much higher than that. Having a really strong team in place, I think, is one of the most important, followed by the idea. But what you learn early on, and now that we've been kind of doing this for a while, and we've also helped mentor and advise other companies, is that, you know, ideas change, right? But it's the people, it's the team that has to you know, have the ability to evolve as the ideas change and stick with it. So even like early on, we were trying Weebly and Snap Layout and Snapback. And any other questions?
Could you just talk about the first couple of users when you first, like your first few
Yeah.
signups and what that was like, where you were, and how you reacted?
Totally, yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, no, I remember. So the first users were like our friends, right? So we saw like, you know, user number 32 and number 30. But when we moved out to San Francisco and we were actively, you know, just focused on Weebly and we weren't in school anymore, I built a cool little like hardware display and like took a picture frame. It was a fully furnished apartment. We had there's like these really ugly pictures. They were like these big wood frames with like postcards in them. It was like really weird. So like I ripped one of these off the wall and I was like, the hell with this postcard thing. And we got this really cool little, you know, LCD screen and put it in there and then hooked it up to, you know, a computer, and we just had it pull and grab. I think it was, you know, the two servers that we had at the time, like the load and then the active user number of users that are like currently using the service. And it would kind of rotate between the two, like every, you know, like 10 seconds or something like that. Three of us were sitting in the living room. We had 3 desks put together, like wood wicker chairs, like the most uncomfortable chair you could possibly imagine, like, you know, it's crazy. And we'd look up and we'd just see this thing, and it was always like 3 logged in users, like the 3 of us. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. And then we'd like push, you know, we'd be messing around, all of a sudden it's like 0 because we just broke something, you know, or whatever. And then I remember, yeah, the day when we had, it was like 4. We were like, oh, shit, like someone's actually using Weebly? Like, no way. So we'd go in and check the database and, you know, do select, you know, star from users where, you know, login equals yes, or whatever. And it's like, see their email address, like, okay, cool. I don't remember exactly who that first user was. I probably should. But yeah, it was pretty exciting. It was cool. And then from there, again, like you get to 10, and then you get to 100 people logged in a day, and then 1,000, and then, you know, 10,000. It just, yeah, they're all milestones, which was fun. And we had a party too for our 1 million user party. We had a party at our office at the time. We had a really cool dashboard that our designer had built, and it had a scrolling list of, I guess it was like the username of everyone who published the site recently. So as people published, it would just kind of scroll, and then it had a big user count number. And we were like, all right, we kind of figured out based on our trajectory when we'd hit 1 million users, and we kind of had a party around that. So all our friends were over, and it was actually at night, you know, it was like 9 or 10 p.m. And we were at, you know, 5 away from 1 million, and, you know, 995,000. And we're like, oh, come on, like what, like, and we were just like waiting around, we were standing around, and then like our friends, I think it was like Justin Kahn, who will be here, and our friend Jamie Quinn, and a couple others were just on their phones, like signing up for fake accounts. And you just see these like fake names coming through, and you're like, all right, and then we hit 1 million. It was like, cool, all right. So, yeah, fun story. Yeah. Anything else? Questions, guys, questions?
So occasionally I get to talk to funders here in very early stages, and you know, sometimes they talk about, you know, what's their exit strategy here, right? have there been, such thoughts, if you want to talk about those, and, at the early stage, because I'm kind of thinking like, wow, this guy, does he actually love his idea? Is he going to want to do this for the rest of his life? Or, is he thinking about cashing out after a year or two when they're, just showing some major growth?
Yeah.
And if so, I mean, how do you deal with, people having different opinions about that and different plans for their lives?
I'll say I've met with quite a few folks that are, starting companies, and there are a handful that are sort of more in it for the money, right? They want to, and I don't necessarily think there's something wrong with that, but in this business, I say business, but when you're building a startup, it's not easy. It's not like, okay, I'm going to build this thing and I'm going to sell it for, $100 million. It doesn't work like that. And because it doesn't work like that, you've got to be able to deal with all the time between when you start it and when you sell it for $100 million, and that's the roller coaster, right? So when I speak with people and, I hear that, or they seem to be more interested in the money early on, it's, I don't know, generally a bad sign, I think, because you really got to be in it for the long run. I mean, we've been doing this since 2006, right? I mean, this is by far not an overnight success, as some would call it. I call it a 8-year overnight success, and we're still going. So yeah, I think it's probably not a good sign if they're really worried about sort of exiting, or what the exit strategy is going to be from the get-go. We don't even know what our exit strategy is going to be, and it's been 8 years, right? I mean, and nor do we really necessarily worry a whole lot about it. I mean, we're still building a company that has a ton of value, and we're still building value. We're still helping people, and I think that's what's important. And I heard that early on when we started Weebly, and we talked to people, and they're like, yeah, we just want to build this big thing. We don't really care about the money. And I'm like, well, you got to care a little bit about the money, but actually what happens is once you get involved and you put your heart and soul into it, it's like your baby, and you want this thing to be super successful, and the money is sort of just an after fact, right? It just comes with that success. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you. That being said, without any idea of an exit strategy at this point, where do you see the future of Weebly going?
We've got a whole lot in store for the future. For us right now, we're really focused on company growth, growing the company, growing the team. Like I said, we opened a couple offices recently that we're expanding, and there's still a lot we want to do. I don't know how much you guys are in tune with Weebly, but we just major game changer. We just launched an iPad app. It's a full native iPad editing experience. You can build a website using the iPad, drag and drop. It's the coolest thing. I'm biased, but it's the coolest thing. And you're using your hands and you're building a website. So we've got some more stuff like that kind of in the pipeline. And there's a whole lot we want to do. I mean, the way I look at it is we're moving up market. We're serving larger and larger customers now with our e-commerce platform. We're now, I think we just had our, well, I won't say, because I think it's going to be a press release, but we just had one of our largest customers on e-commerce, recently. So there's a lot that we're working on. A lot on the product side. There's a lot of new features, functionality that we're developing. And we're kind of entering a new era of the business, which is all about kind of growth. And just, we've got a really stable base now, a stable core. We've got a really stable platform, and we want to sort of grow that platform now and just add on to it, and, whatever we can to service more customers and gain more users.
What's the story behind the name? Where does that come from?
The name, yeah, that's a good one. The name, believe it or not, is more or less random. So back when we were trying to come up with a domain name, most domains are just taken, right? They're all squatted on. It's impossible to find a name. So David built a random sort of name generator, given a certain, pattern of consonant and vowels, put them together as a little Perl script. And we just ran this thing, and it spit out a list of 10 that were available based on the who is. They weren't registered, didn't have DNS servers, that sort of thing. And we chose from that. So the second runner-up was Muvu, which, I don't know. What do you guys think? I think Weebly's better. I don't know. Weebly's got web in it too, right? But more or less, yeah, more or less random. Yeah. So, and then I think Dan coined the original term. It was like, he looked at it, it was like Weebly. He's like, web creation made easy. So we're like, cool, that sounds good. Yeah, great. Yeah, but the name's a big part of it. Yeah, and we, early on we talked about maybe changing the name, but the name is a big part of it now.
What year were you all in when you decided to, pull away from your day-to-day education here and devote your full time to Weebly?
We're all seniors.
Okay.
Yeah, senior year.
So, having had your full 4 years of undergraduate experience before you decided to transition into building your business, is there any advice you could give students of any year as to how to make the most of their time here and their education, and what to look out for, what to keep their eyes open, their ears open for, to better their chances at, if this is their interest, if this is their passion, at succeeding at it?
Mm-hmm. I would say focus on, kind of like I mentioned earlier, your peers. Find people, this is the place, right? You guys are in this town, in State College, there's like 50,000 people plus or minus 2 years your age, right? I mean, everyone's, and there are plenty of people here with the same passion as you. So use this time to find people that have the same passion that you have, get together, and talk about, just talk about ideas, talk about what you want to do, and spend time with those folks. And I think that's really important, and then the second part of it, we get involved, right? I mean, it's like getting involved and being a part of, coming here and seeing, us and the other guys speak is really, it's awesome, right? I mean, just keep doing that. I'll tell you so when I was here, in 2006, it was nothing like this, right? I mean, it was just, this is incredible. I mean, I've just seen such a massive change in the last few years. It's awesome. So just keep it up. I mean, you guys are all part of that. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions? We have one final question that we've been asking all of our speakers.
Sure.
So it is, could you share with us what you believe the next big thing or the next wave will be in your industry?
So, well, I'll start with something outside of Weebly, because I think but in technology. I think, I've got a friend who's building a self-driving car company, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest sort of changes in our lifetime in the next probably 10 years. Is going to be massive. You look at what Elon Musk is doing with Tesla. You look at all these other manufacturers are trying to figure out the best way to build self-driving cars. To me, that's I think a really important part of transportation in the near future. So, and it's cool because it's becoming less about cars and more about software too, right? That's why I like it. It's all software. You look at Tesla and it's like, Elon puts a tweet out, it's like, hey, we're going to increase the 0 to 60 or decrease 0 to 60 time by 0.2 of a second with the next software update. It's like, that's so cool, right? I mean, that's, you can't beat that. So, yeah. Cool. All right.
Thank you,
guys.
Chris, for coming out and speaking.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be hanging around too if any of you guys have